All right, let's talk about a real head scratcher happening in the luxury world right now. It's a story that feels like it's from two different planets. On one side, you've got brands hitting all-time highs, and on the other, total freefall. So that's the big question, right? How can the exact same market be having its best year ever and its worst year ever, all at once? It seems like it shouldn't be possible, but believe me, it is. The luxury industry is caught in this wild economic paradox. And you can see this divide clear as day right here. You've got these absolute giants, Gucci, Burberry. They're facing shocking drops in sales. But then you look at a brand like Hermès, and it's a completely different universe. They're posting record-breaking profits, almost like they didn't even get the memo about a crisis. There's actually a word for this, and it's bifurcation. I know, it's a bit of a fancy term, but it just means a brutal, extreme split. It's the idea that the luxury market has basically shattered into two separate realities. And once you understand this split, the whole mystery starts to make sense. Okay, so first, let's tackle the side of the market that's collapsing. This is the story of what's called aspirational luxury. You know, the brands that built their entire empire on making luxury feel like something almost anyone could grab a piece of. And for a good 10 years or so, this strategy was genius. Their target wasn't the billionaire class, not at all. It was the upper middle class, it was millennials, it was Gen Z. They pushed products like those logo belts you saw everywhere, the flashy designer sneakers, the entry-level handbags, things that gave you a taste of the grand without the five-figure price tag. The whole game was about one thing, selling a lot of stuff. And like I said, for a while, this worked incredibly well. But now, you can see the model is just cracking under the pressure. The bill is finally coming due. And this number, this 80%, it reveals that a lot of that growth was just an illusion. Turns out, a huge chunk of it wasn't coming from new customers or selling more bags. A whopping 80% of the growth came from just jacking up the prices on everything. They weren't growing the pie, they were just charging more for the same old slice. So what happened? Well, it was a three-punch combo that knocked them out. First, you've got simple consumer fatigue. The middle-class shoppers they depended on got absolutely hammered by inflation, and those luxury belts were the first thing to go. Second, people started looking at the crazy price tags and realized the quality just wasn't there anymore. It felt like a ripoff. And third, and this is a big one, they lost their mystique. When you see a luxury bag on every street corner, it just stops feeling special. Now let's flip over to the other side of this canyon. This is the story of Hermès, a strategy built not on making things easy to get, but on making them almost impossible. A strategy of refusal. And the biggest difference really comes down to who they're selling to. While those other brands were chasing the middle class, whose budgets go up and down, Hermès was laser-focused on the ultra-wealthy. We're talking about a group of people who were basically recession-proof. For them, a little thing like inflation doesn't even register. Their spending habits just don't change. At the heart of it all is this wild idea called artificial scarcity. You see, instead of trying to make enough product to meet demand, they do the exact opposite. They deliberately make less than people want to buy. I know, it sounds crazy from a business perspective, but by making their products so hard to get, they make them infinitely more desirable. Here's how it actually plays out. You can't just walk into a Hermès store and buy a Birkin bag. It doesn't work that way. First, you have to spend a ton of money on other things, scarves, belts, shoes, to build a purchase history. Then, if you're lucky, you might get invited to buy one of the iconic bags. The bag stops being a purse and becomes a financial asset, something that holds its value better than stocks. The act of just buying the thing is the real luxury. And this brings us right to the core philosophy, the secret sauce that separates the winners from the losers in this new world. It's not about how many people you can say yes to. It's about mastering the art of saying no. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? Real luxury isn't about that instant Amazon-style dopamine hit. It's about making people wait. It's about creating scarcity on purpose. And maybe most importantly, it's about having the discipline to turn down a quick buck today to protect the brand's power for decades to come. And this chart really visualizes the problem. If you're a public company, your investors are breathing down your neck, demanding growth every single quarter. But what does true luxury need? The exact opposite. It needs slow, careful, deliberate scarcity. These two things are completely at odds, and that's the trap the aspirational brands walked right into. So let's bring it all home. What's the big lesson here? In this totally split market, what's the real truth about value in the luxury world? Well, it really boils down to two very different paths. Path one was to try and democratize luxury, to make it for everyone. And the result? The brand became a commodity. It became common. Path two was to master the art of saying no. And the result of that? Its value, its desire, just went through the roof. And those brands that are in crisis today, they are stuck in the absolute worst place you can be, the middle. They made themselves too expensive for the middle class that used to love them, but at the same time, they became way too common for the truly wealthy who crave real exclusivity. So, what's the future of luxury look like? Well, it's about these things right here. It's about quiet luxury, no giant logos. It's a relentless obsession with quality and craftsmanship. It's building a wall of exclusivity that feels almost impenetrable. And above all, it's having the guts to say no. The future belongs to the most disciplined, not the biggest. And it kind of leaves you with this one last thought. We live in a world where you can get almost anything you want with a single click. So maybe, just maybe, in a world of unlimited access, the only thing that feels truly special, the greatest luxury of all, is the one thing you're told you can't have.